In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to organize and draft a persuasive paper. I do want to point out that I am explaining the very basic form of a persuasive paper. If you are a more advanced student and know about ways to modify or build on this basic outline, and you're writing a paper for me, that's fine. But I did want to explain for people who haven't encountered it before how you would go about organizing your persuasive paper. So the first thing, of course, is that you want to start with your thesis, which is your argument. And I've explained to you in a previous video a number of ways to come up with a good working thesis. So for this video, I'm going to assume that you already have your thesis and that you also have at least 3 pieces of evidence to support your thesis. Once you have that, I would suggest that you start by writing the topic sentences for your body paragraphs. As you'll notice, I have 3 body paragraphs, which would make this the standard 5-paragraph essay. And I'm also giving you a formula for your topic sentences. The topic sentence is the first sentence of each body paragraph, and its job is generally to remind the reader what the thesis is and to tell the reader what the topic of that particular paragraph is. Remember that you don't want to have the same topic in 2 paragraphs, so you need to make sure that each paragraph has a separate topic. And the topic, just to close the circle, is the reason why your thesis is correct. So you will see that a very basic formula for a topic sentence for body paragraph 1 is 1 reason why, and then you would write down what your thesis is, and then add is because, and then you would very quickly say what your reason is. The reason why you don't want to go on in detail in your topic sentence is because you have the whole rest of the body paragraph to explain your reason and then to make clear why that reason supports your thesis. The topic sentence for body paragraph 2 would be another reason why, restate your thesis, is because, and then you would give your second reason. Your third paragraph would have the topic sentence, a third reason why, state your thesis, is because, and then you would give your third reason. Okay, then you're going to write out your body paragraphs, but all along you're thinking, but Alexine, I need to write my intro paragraph. Well, here's why I think you should hold off on writing your intro paragraph until you've worked out your thesis and your 3 reasons. Your intro paragraph is your opportunity to make a first impression. So think, for example, about the first time that you're meeting someone important, someone you're meeting on a date, someone who might be a potential employer, someone you want to impress. You know that your first impression and your last impression are the most important. The first impression frames how the person will be thinking about you and what you have to say. And the last impression is what you want to leave in their mind after you're gone so that they're more predisposed to agree with whatever it is you want from them. Date me, hire me, I don't know what else. Okay, so let's think about how we go about doing that. We start with a hook, which is what you use to grab the reader's attention, and you'll see that I've listed 4 very common hooks in order, I think, of awesomeness. The first kind of hook is what we call an anecdote. And an anecdote is just a little story that begins to get the reader to think about whatever it is that your paper is discussing. Another possible hook would be a surprising fact. That could be something that you've read in the course of the semester that strikes you as sort of surprising, but that also, again, starts your reader to think about your topic. Another thing might be a bold statement. A bold statement should not be your thesis statement said in a bolder way. It needs to be something that's a little bit to the side of the thesis so that you can use a discussion of the bold statement to lead your reader to the thesis. And then you'll see that I have the rhetorical question. And first, I just want to make sure that you know that a rhetorical question is one where there isn't an answer or there isn't a clear answer. And the point of a rhetorical question is that you're trying to get your reader to think. And you'll notice that I've crossed it out. That's because I think rhetorical questions are very high school. This is the kind of thing that a student in high school will write, but one that as a college level writer, I would suggest that you avoid. It's just not the most effective way to start your paper. So I'm going to say, No rhetorical questions for any papers for me. So after you've grabbed your reader's attention, you want to give background. And background is where you introduce your reader to the topic. Your topic could be code switching, African American vernacular English, grammar, the Norman invasion, or anything else that we have covered in class. But the topic is the thing that your thesis is about. The purpose here is not to start arguing for your thesis. You want to introduce your topic in a very dispassionate, calm way so that you and the reader are on the same page when you introduce your thesis. So if you're writing about code switching, you could explain what code switching is, who does it, the contexts in which people might code switch, but you're not making your argument yet. You're just explaining your topic. Then you would introduce what I call your they say. And the they say is an opposing argument. Remember that your thesis, to be good, should be something that we call controversial, which just means that a reasonable person could disagree. So here's where you want to introduce the reasonable argument against yourself. You shouldn't say, some bozo thinks, and then introduce what they say. You should just calmly and very dispassionately acknowledge that there is an opposing argument and you understand what it is. Then you do your pivot. You might say something like, I disagree, or unlike people who believe, and then say the opposing argument, I argue that, and then you're going to introduce your thesis. Your thesis should be the last sentence of your introduction paragraph, and you should only tell the reader what it is that you want the reader to believe. You do not need to give your reasons why. Okay, so that's your introduction paragraph. And now we're going to go to the other end of your paper. We're going to look at your conclusion paragraph. Remember, that's the last chance that you have to leave something kind of echoing in the mind of the reader. This is your mic drop moment, right? So for this kind of paper, I would suggest that you conclude by reminding your reader of the thesis. So you might write something like, in conclusion, comma, and then restate your thesis. And now you need to offer a concluding insight. A concluding insight is not a fourth reason why your thesis is correct, because the minute you write that first sentence of your conclusion paragraph, the one that says in conclusion, and you say your thesis, you are finished arguing. You are not going to continue to give reasons for your thesis. You also don't want to restate the 3 reasons you already gave. I read them, and hopefully they've convinced me to agree with you. So you do not need to recap your argument. And that makes a conclusion paragraph very hard to write. So let me talk about a couple of strategies that you might use. I often think that the coolest concluding insight in a conclusion paragraph is one that brings my mind back to your hook. In other words, you're using the concluding insight to circle back to your hook. One way to do that would be to write a sentence like, to return to my opening, and then if you wrote an anecdote, you might say, my opening story, and then finish the story. That means that when you start the paper, you have to tell enough of the story to lead the reader to your thesis, but you're not going to finish the story until the conclusion. Or, if you're using a surprising fact, you might say, to return to my opening fact or statement, so this could also apply to your bold statement, and then you want to offer some new insight about the fact or the statement in light of the evidence that you've given in your 3 body paragraphs. Often, this is a chance for you to say, for example, while my opening statement might have seemed surprising, or while the opening fact that I gave you might seem surprising upon, consideration of the evidence that I've given, it's actually not that surprising. It's understandable. The last kind of insight might be to think about other consequences of your thesis. So for example, if my thesis about code switching is correct, then this is a way that we might also think about how we should be required to dress in the workplace, or what would be a consequence if no one code switched or if everybody code switched. So you're kind of expanding out what it is that you have argued for in your thesis. So those are my suggestions for your paper. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. If you feel like you're a more advanced writer and you would like to kind of push this structure a little bit farther, you should also feel free to reach out to me because I'm happy to discuss ways of riffing on this model. Okay, good luck with your paper, and I can't wait to read them.